Return, O virgin daughter of Israel, to these your highways by which you went. Welcome to Reunion Roadmap, a place to discover the people and communities along the highway of restoration for Israel's house of Joseph. Reunion Roadmap is a B'nai Yosef North America production. Be our guest for the next hour as we meet the people of the emerging house of Joseph here in North America.
Hello, this is Stefania Pappas for B'nai Yosef North America, and with me is Al McCarn, our Executive Director. We're going to the center of the United States and interviewing somebody that's really going to give us a very paradigm-shifting message. Isn't that right, Al?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I've had my paradigm shifted so much in the last 25 years that, well, why should I be surprised when Josh Tolley does it again? Yeah, so we had an opportunity to interview Josh in St. Louis, which is his home. And over the next 3 shows, he will be talking to us about biblical definitions and procedures for dealing with business, dealing with laborers and money. And you know what, Stefania? It sure is a whole lot different than the system that we are currently in.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it was very challenging for me.
Yes. So that's why we will be providing links to Josh's website, and I would encourage everyone to go and listen some more. And perhaps if Josh is going to be speaking near you, you might want to go hear him. Along with me on this interview is our finance director, Marcus Bowman. And I met Josh through Marcus, in fact. So he's asking some very important questions there as well. And again, this is paradigm shifting in terms of employer-employee relationships. What do we do with our money? What are our goals in life? And oh, by the way, what does it mean to be a business owner and to accumulate and create wealth as God defines these things? So that's how we're going to start the show. And again, we have good music with you. This time we have Lenny and Varda and Jimmy Black, and our elders, Barry Phillips and David Jones, will bring a midrash on the subject of blessing. So that is all ahead, but let's start with Josh Tolley. Well, here we are at another interview segment of Reunion Roadmap. This time we get to stop right in the middle of America in St. Louis. And along with me is my friend and colleague, Marcus Bowman, our finance director with B'nai Yosef North America. Marcus, would you please do us the honor of introducing our special guest?
Al, I would love to do that. So got to meet Josh actually for the first time just earlier this year. It was introduced by a mutual friend and someone who now works with Josh. His name is Jeff Short. Jeff got me to attend a Business of Life seminar that Josh was putting on in St. Louis in July. So flew there and spent 3 days having my mind thoroughly blown with the content and really an enjoyable experience. Learned a little bit about Josh since. I'm sure there's a lot more to know, so I'm looking forward to this interview. Josh is a Torah brother. He's I would say a serial entrepreneur. He's written a couple of books, one of which I'll tell you the title and you'll never forget it. Quit Your Job or Die is one of his books. The other one I believe called Evangelpreneur. So that's just a little bit about Josh, pretty widely read and interviewed, has a business consulting practice among other things, a private equity fund that he's getting rolling here. So a lot of really cool and exciting things going on, and I'm excited to see how we can partner with Josh in the future to build the kingdom. This is going to be fun.
Well, thank you, Marcus. Josh Tolley, welcome to the show. It is an honor to have you with us.
Oh, thank you so much. And that was a great intro. Great intro. Pleasure to be here, guys.
Yeah, and you didn't even pay Marcus at all.
I have not been paid.
Yeah, Josh, before we go any further, for those who would like to know how to get in touch with you and hear your podcasts and see what you're doing, how would they do that?
They can go to a few different websites. One website is joshtolley.com, JOSHTOLLEY.com. The other one is Purple Monkey Garage. And then, of course, Shift Capital, SHYFT-capital.com.
And all of those are intriguing names. And I guess we want to focus in right now on the weirdest one, Purple Monkey Garage. What is that?
Purple Monkey Garage is the first place in the world where you can take businesses just like you would a car to a mechanic or a dog to a vet or your house to a repairman and actually get it fixed. So I've been in business for 25 years, and I realized that the world is divided between a lot of really high-priced consultants that don't really do much anyway. And then on the other side, you have what I call the Insta experts who pose in front of a rented Ferrari and, sell some sort of click funnel system. And that's it. And there's no place that most people can take a business just like you would a car and say, my business is broken, fix it. So we created the first one in the world.
I have seen similar things like this on, say, the Food Network with going to save a restaurant or a bar.
Yes.
Yeah, but you do this for any business. Now, how did you get into this kind of thing?
Well, I became an entrepreneur. My first bout with entrepreneurship was when I was in middle school. So I've been an entrepreneur really since middle school. But I started my first legal business 3 days after high school, and I haven't looked back. I've owned dozens of businesses myself, and I've helped thousands of people with their businesses, big and small. And we just started noticing trends. Most small businesses, and small being a relative term, but $50 million a year and under, they're all failing for similar reasons. Once you get above that, it gets a little more complex. But most businesses under that threshold are failing for similar reasons. So the ability to fix them is relatively duplicatable. And it's really not that hard. So for a while, we were even offering a guarantee, this was pre-COVID, that we could fix your business within 12 months or we would buy it up to $5 million. And we've never had to buy any. So we got pretty good at fixing companies. And that led to what Marcus was talking about, few books, and I've been on television all around the world and stuff like that talking about this issue. So it just kind of became my hot button, because I know that there's no freedom without free enterprise. And free enterprise is talked about in the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. Yet, for some odd reason, today in the modern faith-based world, it's almost a taboo topic.
That's a strange thing, a strange phenomenon that I would like to explore with you a little more. Now, I'm thinking of guys like Dave Ramsey. And we've been through Financial Peace University, and it has helped us a lot with our personal finances. You're looking at beyond the personal to the actual entrepreneurial aspect, but are the principles similar?
Beyond the fact that we both have similar friends and we both hate the idea of being in debt, not really. There's quite a stark difference, actually. Part of the thing that led me to realize I need to do this was what I was seeing on that side of the financial aisle, if you will. When I became an entrepreneur way before I was a believer, and I become a believer, and then I'm thinking, well, this book is for all instruction, so there has to be some wonderful instruction financially out there. And I went and looked, and no, there's really 2 to 3 things. On one side, you have the prosperity gospel, the name it, claim it, buy a magical handkerchief, spin around, and you're a millionaire. And then on the other side, you have the money's not important, don't think about money, but make sure you give 10% on the way out. And in the middle, there might be something on tithing or getting out of debt. And I thought, well, that's terrible. That's gross, actually. So there's no, I don't think there's any bad blood between me and Dave, but there's not a whole lot of similarity either. Getting out of debt is not enough. It's not. And I agree that there shouldn't be debt, but this whole idea of getting out of debt, do Gazelle step 1, get a duplex, rent out the other half or whatever, it just isn't going to cut it. We talk a lot about that in my Business of Life event, where you have these people thinking, well, I can invest in mutual funds and get to $1 million, but if you're under 60, $1 million isn't going to cut it anyway. There needs to be a change on how we actually produce money, how we engage in business. And until that changes, the problem's not going to change. And here, a perfect example, it just isn't me, just look at the numbers. You have over 65% of US households who have a mutual fund, a 401k, or an IRA, yet 7 out of 10 people are broke. Well, wait a second, how's that even possible? Something's not working. So we really kind of address that in depth in the training, but I'm glad he's out there getting people out of debt, but beyond that, there's not a whole lot of similarity.
Yeah, that helps. And I would agree with you there. There is the get out of debt, but then there's the build wealth part.
Yeah. And this idea that you have to stay in front of the inflationary wave, this idea that, a 6 to 10 to 12% return on your mutual fund is a good thing is stupid. You're never going to build wealth at 12% a year. It's not going to happen. First, inflation has always been 10% a year for the last 100 years. I understand that financial planners will tell you that it's 3% or 3.4%, but that's absolutely not true. Again, you don't have to take my word for it. 5 times Congress has changed how they calculate inflation. You get inflation from the Department of Labor statistics, right? The Department of Labor. And mix that with the Congressional Budget Office, you're supposed to be looking at CPI, Consumer Price Index. The problem is that they've changed how they calculate. So, for example, I ask people all the time, when's the last time you bought a 747 or a D10 dozer? Most people haven't. When's the last time you've eaten food? Yet what we've done is we've reduced the calculation factor that pertains to food, and we've increased heavy equipment sales, aircraft sales, and semiconductor sales. So even though food has gone up 48% in the past 5 years, we're being told it's a 3% inflation. That's because 747s only went up 0.25%. And you can even watch, because we record everything now, you can actually watch C-SPAN video of Congress asking Ben Bernanke and all the people who are running this show, is it true that we changed the math? And they admit to it. And given the old math, what would inflation be every year? 12%. And we actually document and cite how every year since 1871 it's been 10%. Well, that means if you're getting an 8% actual return in your investment, you're going backwards 2%. And there's a huge difference too between average return and actual return. When you hear people say, well, my average return on my mutual fund is 12%, that doesn't mean they're making 12%. And even on Dave's own website, there's a little asterisk that if you follow the asterisk, he explains, well, okay, so I'm not actually making 12%, but the average is 12%. Well, that means you can actually go backwards and have have less money than you started with and average a positive return. Average is like the market's version of Bible math, right? We all know somebody who says, well, if you take the square root of the 3 letters in this tetragrammaton and then you take that and divide it by the number of days in a year, and then, well, it's going to equal whatever number you want. Averages do the same thing financially. You can make an average do anything you want. So we really have to be careful when we address how do we make money, how do we protect money, and then how do we leave a legacy and use this for a purpose.
Go ahead, Marcus.
So Josh, kind of building out on this, and for anybody who hasn't been to Josh's Business of Life seminar, I would encourage it because it lays a foundation for a lot of even what he's talking about here. Having been through that myself and having appreciated some of that foundation, I hear you describing us in a situation that hasn't been forever. In fact, it wasn't always this way in our country even, right? So can you help us understand our history a little bit? How did we get here? Can you kind of point out some of the way that our thinking has been changed?
Yeah.
Situation?
No, that's a great point because we haven't always been here. And I liken it to, if you and I go find a wolf out in the wild and we raise that wolf, it doesn't matter how tender we are, that wolf is going to bite you in the face. But if you raise the puppy of that wolf's going to be kind of domesticated. And by the time you get to the 3rd generation, that puppy wouldn't be able to survive on its own out in the woods. Well, we've kind of done that same thing. This idea of employment is relatively new. Even in American terms, it's relatively new. If we go way back, biblically speaking, there's only 4 types of people: masters, laborers, servants, and slaves. That's it. Well, a master is the rich guy on the top of the hill. We know who he is. A slave is captive, doesn't have an option. But that leaves us with two. And I really, truly believe we need to understand the definition of words, especially if we're going to be believers, in order to really project and then live out what those words mean. So, for example, Matthew tells us that we cannot be servants to God and money, that we cannot be. Not that it's a sin. It says you can't. You're going to love one, hate the other, hate one, or love the other. Well, if it's telling us we can't, that means we have a choice. It wasn't a slave. He never says, thou shalt not be a slave. No, because a slave doesn't have a choice. But he says, don't be a servant to money. So we need to understand what a servant to money is. In biblical times, a servant to money would work a 10 to 12-hour day. A servant to money would have to start that shift when the master said so. A servant to money couldn't go home until the master said so. Well, a great question is, what time do you have to be to work and what time do you get to go home? A servant, if they saved up enough money, could buy their freedom. Today, we call that retirement. A servant, if they love their master, could go to the city gate, put an awl through their ear, take their master's mark, and be theirs for life. Today, that's called tenure and pension. Biblically speaking, the definition of serving money is what we call today employment. That's what it is. And yet we've been perverted into thinking that serving money is somehow the rich guy who's always rich and he's trying to think about being rich. And no. That's not how it works. It's what you are actually doing. And what you're doing when you're an employee is you're serving money. And if you don't believe me, just ask yourself, if they stop paying you, would you stop showing up? Now, contrast that with a laborer. Jesus, Yeshua, uses laborers as an example when he talks about the two guys who are out in the field, and then the other two guys show up, and the second two guys get the same reward as the first two guys. And I get that that's a parable for those who come to salvation late in life, get the same heavenly reward in heaven as those who come early. Got it. But why did Jesus use entrepreneurship, aka being a laborer, as the example? Because the laborer gets to say how much, they get to say when, they get to say when they start, they get to say when they're done. And once the contracted project is over with, you're free. You can do whatever you want to do, which means if you increase your skill set, not only can your wealth go up, but your diversification of opportunity goes up too. Which means if today I'm working in a field for 20 pieces of silver, next month or next week, I can take my children on vacation to the Sea of Galilee, still make money because I increased my skill set in order to fix fishing nets. So we have to look at that and say, wow, the Bible actually tells us from Genesis to Revelation, 1, don't be a servant to money. 2, serving money is the current definition of employment, but worse yet, we're not only doing it ourselves, but we're teaching our children to do it. Well, what does the Bible say about woe to those who teach the little ones the wrong way to go? Better a millstone be tied around your neck. Now, somebody might say, well, am I saying that if you're an employee, you're sinning? I'm just saying you have to check with God. Because if you really think about it, is that what God really wants for his people? And we can dig into this more. You know, does God want me to have this job and all that sort of stuff? But the reality is, as a whole, as a faith-based world, we have walked away from what God has told us to do and instead went for this false sense of security called employment, savings, and retirement.
It's interesting you say that, Josh, because as my historical mind is thinking, this dialogue was carried out throughout the 19th century as industrialization happens, and there was this term, a politically charged term called wage slavery.
Yes.
And you have just nailed it. When you look at it compared to the Bible, that is exactly what William Jennings Bryan was talking about in the 1880s and 90s.
Well, absolutely. And it gets even worse as we go through that industrialized period. We get to 1903, we get the mechanical assembly line. We get to 1913, we get the income tax. You get to the Great Depression, you have the Great New Deal. And the New Deal actually is when we switch. We go from an entrepreneurship-based economy to an employee-based economy. Now, the problem with that is once an economy is based on employment as opposed to entrepreneurship, it can no longer keep up with inflation. It's mathematically impossible.
Here's Lenny and Varda with Hear Us from their album Torah is Life, available at lennyandvarda.com.
Shepherd of Israel, awaken your might and come and save us. Hear us, O Shepherd of Israel, awaken your might and come and save us. You who sit enthroned between the cherubim and seraphim, shine your light out to the place where you scattered sheep will see your face. Restore us, O God of Israel. Make your face to shine upon us. Restore us, O God of Israel. Make your face to shine upon us. How long will your anger burn? Pierce our hearts and make them turn back to where we started from, where our roots go down in the Holy Land. Return to us, God of Israel. Look down from heaven and see your people. Return to us, God of Israel. Look down from heaven and see your people. Praying for the restoration of your holy separate nation. Join our hearts unto our brothers. We proclaim that there is no other Holy One of Israel. Holy, 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 Holy One of Israel. Holy, 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 there is none who can compare with the perfect Son who did declare us righteous in our Father's sight, so we could run this race and fight the fight. Holy One of Israel, holy, 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 Holy One of Israel. Holy, 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 praying for the restoration of your holy separate nation. Join our hearts unto our brothers. We proclaim that there is no other Holy One of Israel. Holy, 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 Holy One of Israel. Holy, 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 there is none who can compare with the perfect Son who did declare us righteous in our Father's sight, so we could run this race and fight the fight. Holy One of Israel. Holy, 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 Holy One of Israel. Holy, 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 Holy One of Israel. Holy, 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 holy.
Shalom, everybody. Welcome to the mid-rush portion of Reunion Roadmap. This is David Jones, and with me today is Barry Phillips. Shalom, brother.
Shalom, right back at you.
So as we go through these midrashes, it often hits where we're at and where we're just kind of thinking about different things. Just natural tendency. What you're reading is what you think about. And at the time of this recording, we're finishing the story of Joseph, and it's Vayehi is the parsha. So this is all about blessing. Yaakov, Israel, is blessing his sons, blessing Yosef, blessing Manasseh and Ephraim, blessing his other sons, and giving them what he feels is the heart of the Father, and trying to bring them together in a place of seeing one another as a whole, and not just individuals, but how they fit within the whole. And as I was looking through some things and studying a few things for this week, I've come across something that was written by John Trent, and he says regarding blessing, he says the Hebrew word for blessing, it's one of the most important words in the Bible. It's used over 640 times in the Tanakh. So it's like pretty cool, good thing to read here. But in his thinking, the blessing has 5 basic elements if you break it down. So there's 5 basic things that constitutes blessing when you see it being given and being spoken and all that. And it's these 5 points. 1 is meaningful touch. We see people laying hands on someone when they would pronounce a blessing. So 1 is meaningful touch. 2 is a spoken message. 3 is attaching a high value or placing a high value. 4 is picturing a special future. And 5 is an active commitment to fulfill the blessing. And the interesting thing about this is when we see the patriarchs blessing their descendants, it's not wishful thinking. We say, oh, well, this is just wishful thinking. It's just what they want for them. But I don't believe so. I believe that they were seeing into their life and speaking into their life and their personality and who they are and the heart of the Father for them going forward. It's believed among many Orthodox that as someone is preparing to die, preparing to pass, and they pronounce a blessing over their children, that a spirit of prophecy comes to them to allow them to speak that blessing. And that's so that we can see beyond, well, this is what I want for my kids, and say, what does Yahweh want for my kids?
Right.
So that's kind of a lot in here to kind of set it up, Barry. What direction do you think we should go with this?
Well, there's 2 things I want to share here. I was reading after a particular more rabbinical-oriented site, and the information was about the 3 categories of blessings, 2 of which the Father bestows upon his children. And so as we read toward the end of this Torah portion, we see that Yaakov prophesies over his sons and blesses them. This is a brakah, the word we typically use for blessing, where the Father bestows his favor and his blessing upon his children. There is the Bekorah, which is the double portion blessing intended for the heir apparent, if you will, that receives a double portion of inheritance. This was bestowed upon Joseph in that he had 2 tribes as opposed to 1. And then there is the Bekira, which is a blessing that only Yah can place upon someone, and he did it 3 times, to Abraham, to Yitzhak, to Yaakov. The Bekira in particular is a divine blessing that is bestowed, that the recipient gains the lineage of the seed that was promised back in Bereshit or Genesis chapter 3, the seed of the woman, and the inheritance of the land, Zerah ve'haaretz. So the lineage of Israel carries those two elements. They are the race of people, or the family of people, who will see the seed appear, Mashiach, which that did happen. And it is also those then that will receive the inheritance of the land allotment from the Nile, or the river of Egypt. We assume that's the Nile, all the way to the Euphrates. So when the Brit Hadashah speaks of you and I being heirs with Messiah, that's a part of that, in that Messiah's kingdom will be situated in that particular land allotment, with Jerusalem as its capital. Yeshua seated as the king in that capital, but the land of Israel will largely increase from what its modern borders are. And you and I hope to receive in that kingdom a portion, just as when they came out of Mitzrayim and came to the land, they received tribally, and then down to the families and to the individuals, a land allotment. So we may not think of it as being very much in modern American terms, where much of our public rents, you rent a place and it's not really yours, but you have use of it. The American ideal of, I want land, I want to own my own land, that's not seen as important as much as it is you got a place to stay. Here in Virginia, for some weird reason, I own 1.5 acres. Now, it's not huge, but it's enough for me and my house. And what it's done is given me a desire. I need more land. But here in Virginia, I may technically own the land, but I better be paying property tax on it, or I lose the land. And I can still, even though I own the land, I can't just do anything with it that I want. I have to get permits and licenses and so forth if I want to put a structure up on it, or if I want to house animals, like farm animals and so forth on it. I may be required for certain licensing to do that. So even though you own the land, you really don't own the land outright. The second thing I wanted to mention, David, when you were talking about this, it brought back a very vivid memory of my dad. My dad passed away March the 15th, 2018. The last time I saw him prior to his passing, as I was getting ready to go out the door. Now, my parents live 4.5 hours away from us, so I mean, it's a trip involved to go see him. And the last thing that my dad said to me, he turned and faced me as I was getting ready to go out the door and grabbed me by my arms, that meaningful touch. And he looked at me. He said, I bless you that your pocketbook always be full of money. And I thought, oh, that's strange, because my dad had just that afternoon taken me out on the property. And he said, I want to show you the boundary markers to the property. I said, Dad, why is that? Why would you do that? He said, well, it's important that you know. So we walked the property line, and he said, you know, it's one here, one there, etc. And I thought that was strange, but I drove away. My father laid his hands on me, looked at me, and pronounced a blessing on me. That was, as you're describing this thing, it's a powerful impact on me. If I can continue with step number 5 and an active commitment to fulfill that blessing, that would be an awesome thing to take place.
You know, as you were saying that, and it's a beautiful picture. Your father made a way for these 5 steps in that blessing for you.
Yeah. He did. And
it's amazing to see how this is carried out from generation to generation. And even like you were saying about how Yahweh, in the blessing that he gave to Israel, it involved the promise of land and continuation, and they would have what they would need in there. And all of these steps is what Yahweh had given to Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob, and to all those who would come into that. And, you know, Galatians tells us that Yeshua came and he did what he did so that the blessing of Abraham could come to the Gentiles. Yahweh made a way so that this blessing could go into the whole earth. And that's important for us. If we could see that this blessing that he has given us is not just spiritual, you know, it's not just emotional. It's not just each of these things. It's physical. It's a reality. There is a reality to the things that he has given toward us. It is spiritual because it is eternal and it is ongoing and progressing. It's emotional because we have an investment in this, in all that we are and all that he is. And, you know, I heard from Henoch Young once that there is one thing in Scripture that Yahweh himself said that he will do with all his heart and all his soul.
Yes.
And that one thing, you know what I'm saying? That one thing is he will bring his people back to the land. And that land was part of the promise.
Yes.
That land was part of the blessing.
Yes.
You know, Abraham says, okay, you're going to give me an heir. I haven't seen the heir and to be nations, but what good is having a nations and having a people if they don't have a place? And I think that's why people kind of put a lot of stock in the someday, you know, the New Jerusalem someday, you know. Well, the thing is, Yahweh doesn't want us to live in someday, and I'm not discounting it. I'm just saying, what about the part and the roles in the kingdom he wants us to have here? There are things he wants us to take care of here as part of the blessing he has given us, you know. And like you were saying, working on that number 5,
Oh, yeah.
that's a commitment to the blessing.
Wow. You know, David, I think we're missing as the body of Messiah a very powerful opportunity, especially with our children, not waiting until we're ready to die, but rather looking at our children and speaking the Father's blessing over them. Especially as men, we need to be looking at our children, laying our hands on them and blessing them. My wife encouraged me some time ago that when all the family is together with us at a Shabbat table, she said, honey, you need to get up from your seat and go over to each of the ones at the table and lay your hands on them. And not just say, may you as ladies be as Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. Put your hands on them and say that to them. Conferring the blessing. It's so easy to curse, you know, making angry remarks at someone. As leaders of our congregations, we need to be understanding that we have the authority to bless, to encourage, conferring a blessing of Yah upon them. Yah takes this seriously. This is not just mere words thrown out in the middle of the air for, I hope you do well, I wish you well. No, we're conferring through the power and the anointing of the Ruach HaKodesh, the favor of Yah upon people, that if they will follow through these steps that you've outlined, especially number 5, they can see that blessing manifest in their lives and have something then to pass on. A blessing is something you receive, but it's also something you can pass on.
You know, we're out of time, Barry.
How do we do that?
I want to keep going. If we receive freely, you have received, freely give, right?
Right.
And Yahweh has given us a blessing of life, and we should continue that on and to do that. Man, we can keep going. I better stop. So, guys, good to hear from you, your comments and your thoughts and what you like about the show, and we appreciate those. And you can continue to let us know what you think at
Reunion Roadmap at B'naiYosefNA.com.
Jimmy Black now sings Awaken My Heart. You can hear more of Jimmy Black's music at jimmyblack.com.
And I'm running home, I'm running back to you, seeking your face, I run to your grace for me. All I need is you. All I want is you. Awaken my heart, awaken my soul to you, so I will worship. Awaken my will, awaken my love for you, 'cause I am yours. I'm running home, I'm running back to you. I'm seeking your face, I'm seeking your face. I run to your grace for me. All I need is you. All I want, Lord, all I want is you. Come on, you tell them. Oh, we say, awaken my heart, awaken my soul to you, so I will worship. Awaken my will, worship. Awaken my will, awaken my love for you. Come on, we say. Awaken my heart, awaken my soul to you, so I will worship. Awaken my will, awaken my love for you, my love for you, my love for you. I am yours. I am yours.
That was Awaken My Heart with Jimmy Black. And it sure does fit with that midrash on blessing. So what stood out to you from there, Stefania?
Well, I was thinking about how this whole midrash, how it so tightly fits with what Josh Tolley was actually bringing about. And he was talking about this whole aspect of entrepreneurship and owning something, being the owner, the principal owner of a company, for instance. And, then when you start looking at blessing, it's always about passing on something to those who are following you, for your inheritance. And when you frame it in the sense of what Josh Tolley is talking about and the blessing that both David and Barry were talking about, it makes total sense now. It really, it's revelatory.
Revelatory is a good word. And what I heard Josh saying regarding the master and laborer, the business owner and labor relationships, and what I heard Barry saying about being a homeowner in Virginia, we sure have been accustomed to non-biblical procedures and definitions of things. Yeah. Barry explaining how the constraints he has as a homeowner in America, which if he owned his land free and clear, I think as the Lord intended when he gave inheritance to his people in the land of promise, then he could make improvements on his property without having to go to the city council and get a permit. And if we had laborer and business owner relationships as God had intended, then we wouldn't have to pay taxes in the way that we are accustomed to doing so now. And we wouldn't have to have our high hopes resting solely on getting out of debt and hoping our children don't do the same.
Yes.
So we got a lot to learn. And this interview with Josh Tolley is airing at just a, Kairos moment, I would say, as we are going through some significant transitions in the United States and in the global system. So it's a timely word. And I look forward to what he's going to share with us in the next two shows. But that is it for this particular edition of Reunion Roadmap, because we are out of time again. So thank you all for listening. On behalf of Stefania Pappas, Barry Phillips, and David Jones, this is Al McCarn. Shavua Tov.
Thank you for joining us on Reunion Roadmap, a production of B'nai Yosef North America. Please come back next week for another visit with the people of the emerging house of Joseph here in North America.